What's up, guys? Martin Reeder here, 2012 Olympian and volleyball coach. We got Reed Hall here, strength and conditioning specialist, as well as a volleyball coach himself. We are breaking down movements on the court so that you can understand what's necessary. What should you be thinking about while we have this time off the court to build your game, develop your game. So we're really focusing on becoming students of the game by breaking things down. Reed, what are we breaking down today?
Today, we're looking at how to become lights out on defense. So we're looking at some of the best clips or best rallies in the women's games that really highlights the defender. And I think this is unbelievable. The women's game, like these rallies you're going to see, are actually unbelievable. I love the women's game because it's kind of like a thing of art. They need to be very technical with their skills in the women's game because guys get away with all this brute power and terminating balls, where in the women's games, the rallies tend to be much longer, which makes it very, very exciting. I was getting this, like I'm looking at these defenders and like, Martin, what do you think is the mindset of these elite defenders, or is mindset even important?
Mindset's critical. In fact, I think defense starts with mindset. I always share with my athletes and my teams that defense is actually offense. You make the first move as a defensive team. So your strategy isn't just simply react to what other people are doing. You actually put the pieces in play. The offense is reacting to your defense, and then you make adjustments and arrangements once they're in motion and they're starting to react to your setup. So you're the first move, which means to me that you need to be on offense. So defense is offensive mindset. Every single person who's on the court needs to be in a position cohesively, so we're all working together, and everyone needs to be expecting to make the dig. So what I often see is one or two people are expecting to make the dig, but other people are not expecting to make the dig. So in my mind, when I'm playing defense, I have to be taking up my space, my physical space, and I have to have the intention with my mind that if the ball comes into my space, that it's going to be up. And I see too many people not expecting that, and they're surprised when the ball comes to them, and they're not able to make that move. And from a physical side of things, if you're not expecting to make a dig, you're not going to be in the right position. Talk a little bit more about that, Reed. You have a term specifically designed for that scenario.
Yeah, I've called this term the movement deficit. And so what this is when you're on defense and the attacker's about to make contact with the ball, if you're leaning one way or your energy is going either way or in another direction, that's called a movement deficit. So if you have to lean one way and then they attack and you got to readjust your body, that creates time. And that's one of the biggest faults I see with a lot of youth volleyball players. When you're defending, you want to make sure you're stopped on defense when the attacker's making contact with the ball, and then you can react and use your athleticism to get to the ball. But what you'll see is the athletes moving from their starting position into their defensive position. They don't get stopped on time, so their weight's going one way, they attack the other way. They try to overcome the movement deficit, but it takes way too much time. And so being a defender is actually a little bit weird because you need to be strong and proficient with your movements, but yet you need to be very relaxed. You can't be stiff and uptight. Martin, what are some things do you think as a defender that can help you be relaxed or be in that relaxed state so you're not so stiff?
So let's pull it back a little bit, Reed. Let's go top level into more of an animal side of things. So we have our nervous systems. We're either in a fight or flee. So we're very focused. We're in tune specifically on one thing, but we kind of lose our ability to think creatively, to be able to assess things. We get so focused on a pinpoint thing and we get very stiff, right? Or we are in a more relaxed place where we're resting, we're digesting, we're really calm, and we have a wider gaze. We can see more things. We can think more on our feet. We can be a little bit more in flow. We want to have a nice balance of those two. So on defense, I find a lot of people focus too much on the ball and they get so caught up in the ball, they lose the ability to adjust based on things that are happening around the ball. And there's a lot of cues and a lot of things that are happening while you're watching a team execute an offense that if you're not focused on, let's say, arm swing, approach angles, what's happening with the body of the setter, how far the ball is off from the net, what are people doing in preparation, you lose out on a lot of things. So from an eyesight perspective, yes, you need to look and follow the ball, but you need to be in a relaxed enough mental place that you can take in information surrounding the ball, and you can use that information as aggregate to then make a choice on defense. So you can't be so focused and so intense and so hard mentally, because then unfortunately you're too late. If you're just reacting to the ball, you're too late. And then from a physical side, you need to be able to be poised, but also strong so that you can react. So you need to be set, relaxed, and ready to pounce based on what you're observing. Does that make sense, Reed?
Yo, absolutely, 100%. And I want to continue building on that. And so some things as like a defender that I see is we've talked about the attackers making contact on the ball. You need to be stopped and you need to be seeing. That's the first things that you need to do, right? If you can be stopped and you can see and you can be in that relaxed state, as Martin said, you're able to see, oh, what's the hand contact like on the ball as the attacker is making it, right? That gives you information. But if you're doing your movement into your defensive position and you're worried about too much about getting into position and other stuff, and you just can't be in that flow state, you're not going to be nearly as good defender. That being said, say you're a volleyball coach or an athlete, you want to get better with your footwork as a defender, you can do all the speed and agility drills in the world, but if you're not breathing properly and you're not properly relaxed when you're doing these foot speed drills, there's not going to be much transfer. So if I'm going to say there's something that I can recommend to you guys is do your foot speed drills, but make sure you're in a relaxed state. Make sure you're focusing on, is the athlete breathing? Do they look uptight in their face? You know what I mean? Those are some cues that I think could help a ton.
Totally. Well, I just happen to be fairly in tune with breathwork here, Reed. So why don't we dissect that a tiny little bit and give our listeners a little bit of something to take away. When you're breathing in and out through your mouth, it's very tense, and you're going to be holding on to tension. If you're breathing in and out through your nose, you're going to be a lot more relaxed. Well, we're looking for the balance between the two. So what I would love to get people to focus on is breathe in through your nose and out through a mouth that's a little bit more parched. So you have a little bit of resistance through your lips. So if you try to breathe with an open mouth and then try to breathe with a parched mouth, you're going to feel that you have to use a little bit more tension in your core to breathe out through the lips that are tighter. And that's going to allow you to breathe in through your nose and calm your nervous system a little bit, maintain control, and breathe out, maintain a little bit of that diaphragmatic intra-abdominal pressure to be able to pounce and move from. So in through the nose is a really great way in the game to manage your nervous system, stay acutely aware, but be relaxed enough to move really explosively and quickly.
So say in like you're either in a long match, so it's like a 5-set match, or a long tournament. Athletes get more and more fatigued outside the tournament, and that opens room to make a lot of sloppy mistakes. But I'm thinking if the athlete's conditioning is not as good, it affects their breath, right? They're out of breath, they're still trying to recover from the rallies before or the games before, whatever that is. And that has dramatic effect on their defense. So maybe, Martin, could you expand a little bit on, do you think breath could also be a tool to kind of help control your fatigue throughout a match or a tournament?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is becoming more and more mainstream right now. But if you don't have a connection to your breath, if you don't have a breath strategy during your game as an individual, then unfortunately you're missing a really critical element on your ability to recover between plays, between sets, and last full matches. And I'll make a point by saying this. If you're at a certain point so fatigued that you can no longer execute physically, your body's checked out and it's starting to preserve yourself from a survival standpoint. That means all of a sudden your resources are going towards you surviving as a human being versus you performing at an elite level. And now I'm talking like at the end of a 5th set. If you're not conditioned enough, you're not going to be able to play at your best. And most people think physically, but it starts mentally. If your body starts to move towards survival and protection, you're now going to be making different choices. So we've all been there where all of a sudden we make an error. It's like, I've done that a million times, but I was really tired. it's not as much physical as it is mental. We start to lose our minds the less conditioned we are deep. So defense and the ability to play long rallies, you have to be conditioned so that you're mentally fresh at the end of the game. Does that check in, Reed?
No, 100%. And that's what I was hoping you would hit on, because honestly, I think this was personally a big problem that I had as a volleyball player. And so I think something I want to get into next is I was a super big nerd at 13 years old. Like, my two older brothers played volleyball, and I cared so much about the game that I would go up in my bedroom and I'd bring this big, ugly yellow volleyball that was semi-broken. And I would kind of just like visualize with that ball that I'm actually playing the game in my bedroom. I do like countless arm swings in the bed. I pretend like I'm digging these amazing balls. But I think this really helped me develop over the long run as a volleyball player. So what I want you to expand on, I know this is something you're an expert with. What's the importance of visualization, whether that's before a match, doing visualization, or just visualization in general?
So there's a really interesting concept where your mind and your body are connected. So we think that we have to do something physically to lock that in as, hey, we did that thing. But your mind actually doesn't know how to differentiate between mental and physical. So we can actually practice and rehearse in our minds and actually log that as practice time. So our neurons, our body actually thinks that we did it, which is incredible. So from a mindset, mindfulness, thinking about it and envisioning it, you can use that as practice time. So before you're playing, before practice, even sitting on a bus, you're in your regular life doing something, you can take a moment and you can visualize yourself doing something, and it can count as a quality rep. And so you can adjust speed. Okay, so you can focus in on a skill, go very slowly and think about all the little things that are necessary to make that happen. Or you're watching an attacker and you're on defense and you're seeing all of the cues of their approach angle, their feet, their hips, the rotation of their body, their shoulder, where the ball is in relation to their shoulder, where their elbow is, where their hand is rotating towards, how the ball is traveling to and from and past them, all where their eyes are. You can slow things down and zoom in on that and really picture it for you as a defender to build the cues into your system so your body knows what to look for. You can also speed that up and you can look at it fast and you can replay things over in your mind. But I think we underestimate, and I certainly did when I was playing, Reed. I really wish I knew this when I was playing, was you can practice this in your mind and it counts as a quality rep.
And I think that's like, you know what, you honestly, you talk a lot about these mindset things, breathing, a lot on your Instagram channel at Off Ball Athlete. And, you know, you're the one that actually really got me thinking that maybe I wasn't knowledgeable enough or going layers deep enough into these things. And it's profound what I see now as a coach and how important those little things are that you're mentioning. It's absolutely crucial. The next thing that I kind of want to talk about is I've worked with a ton of elite level liberos, and I want to talk about the qualities that I see in the best liberos. So the first thing I want to talk about mobility, or when people often think about mobility, they think about flexibility, but basically what kind of range of motion you have at your joints. So there's female volleyball players that are extremely mobile, they're super mobile, and there's other ones that are, adequate, normal flexibility, mobility, and some that are very, very stiff. Now, here's the problem with some of these things. So the hypermobile, so the excessively mobile defenders that are also weak are the ones that often get serious injuries. Either, they tear their ACL or they get an overuse injury. So those defenders that are super mobile but weak, their problem is they have a hard time slowing down movements properly, and that's where a lot of their injuries happen. The most successful volleyball players, defenders that I have seen are ones with good mobility, but they're strong in all those different positions they can get into. The problem on the other side of the scale is the athletes that are excessively stiff and tight, they don't have that adequate mobility, is they reduce their digging radius. And what I mean by that is they can't take one fluid stride to the ball. It's stiffer, and so their movements have to be shorter. So what I can recommend as a volleyball player, as a defender, is try to identify, are you the really mobile athlete, Are you have adequate normal mobility? Or are you someone that's really stiff? Because that determines your training quite a bit. If you're someone that's extremely stiff, then you need to do mobility, more mobility and flexibility type of work. However, if you're that excessively flexible and mobile athlete, you don't need to be doing a ton of stretching. You don't need to be doing as much mobility work, but you need to make sure you're doing enough strength work so that you can be successful and healthy for the long term.
Big time. Well, if you just observe this video for a moment, and most people are going to see that 90% of the volleyball saves here, so the brilliant defensive plays that we're looking at, 90% of them happen within a foot from the ground. Okay, so defense and the spectacular defensive plays that we're really observing here, short of the one arm stabs when you're sitting there and you're in the right position. Most of the time, it requires you to make contact with the ball within a foot off the ground. So you need to be able to get low with control. And to take what you just said in terms of the stiff and the mobile, I see a lot of guys not being able to own maybe the 3 foot space from the ground to maybe they're just above their knees. They have no physical control there. They're just falling because they don't have the mobility to support that. And then from a women's side, they get there, but they'll crumble and they won't be able to support that space. So how good are you at controlling your body really low on the ground? Can you still move with control and explosiveness? And if you don't know how to dive, or if you struggle how to dive and it feels like you're a tree just falling down sideways, you likely don't have enough mobility in the hips. So you got to get low and you got to be able to control that.
Yeah. And that's the big thing with mobility. When you are mobile, you can get low and now you can be relaxed because you're comfortable in that position. It's the stiff athletes that try to get low, but they're stiff. They have to be very uptight and they can't get in that relaxed state. So where do you want to go here next, Martin? We've looked at some of these incredible rallies and some of these ridiculous defenders, especially this defender we're seeing in these clips here. Like, she just goes beast mode in there. She is locked in and she is like, there is no person that is going to score on me. You know what the funny thing is like, well, liberos are the best defenders. They're always the hardest working athletes in practice. Yeah. I've noticed that the best defensive players, they're just outwork you. If your coach makes you do suicides or punishes you, they're the ones that are finishing first.
I love it. I always challenge my liberos to be the craziest person on the court. You have to be an absolute nut. I used to play with a guy back in college who would stand on the service line and beat his chest, serve me when the guy was serving, or we're on defense and he's screaming, not even who's attacking, but like, I got it before the person's even hit the ball. Once again, defense is a mindset. And if you can bring your aggressive work ethic to the backcourt, rather than react to things, you're on your toes and mentally you're one step ahead of the game and you're calling it, man, you're going to make more digs, more opportunities for your team just based on I am going to get this whether you like it or not. This ball is not hitting the ground in my space, and you're going to contest way more balls. So I love that. The defensive work ethic, it's got to be there.
So for me, I always took pride in being a gritty defender. I wanted to be the grittiest defender. With that being said, I think I've been packed in the face more than any other athlete I know. Like, I'd regularly get hit in the face. One of the guys, you might know him, Steve Delaney. I think every single time I've practiced with him, he's hit a really heavy ball in the sharp cross court that has directly hit me in the face. Now, what I've realized is I might get hit in the face a lot, but I also get those digs that other people turn away from or kind of try to avoid. So if you're an athlete that gets hit in the face a lot, you may not have good getting your hands in the right spot, but you also might have that mindset that's a next level type of thing. I could tell you, if Michael Jordan was playing volleyball, that guy would not be scared to get hit by a ball in the face.
True story. Well, let's transition a little bit into the philosophy of defense. I see too many people, they either miss it or it's not a perfect dig, and they're mentally, they kind of apologize. Okay. Defense is about getting it up. That's it. You have 5 other players that can support you. So if you can just get the ball up 6 inches, a foot, if it's high and deep and someone's got to run, that's fine. So on defense, you don't need to worry about this thing being perfect. You just need to get it up. And so being in a position where you're ready to sacrifice your body and get there to get it up versus I'm thinking about making a perfect dig. Don't think about making a perfect dig. Just get it up. And what I'm building is an idea around creativity. And so in the beach volleyball side of things, Adrian Karambula is amazing at this. He owns the one-arm dig. So I see there's a lot of great athletes here who are doing long reaches and making one-arm digs. I like to coach athletes to use one arm, to trust one arm. It doesn't have to be perfect from a skill standpoint on defense. Yeah, it's nice if it's better, but if you practice to own one arms and be creative with your body to be able to use the chicken wing, use your chest, these are things on defense. The ball's just got to be up.
I think for our viewers, we'd really appreciate that if you followed us on our channels. So whether that's subscribing to our YouTube channel, making sure that you're following Martin Reeder on Instagram at OffBallAthlete, or following me on Instagram at Reed's Workouts. Like, we want to keep coming out with more and more content like this. We'd love for you guys to follow along. So Martin, maybe I could turn the keys over to you here. How are you going to summarize this up? Let's bring this together here, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to use the off-ball terminology, defense doesn't just happen when the ball's making contact with you. There's so many things that are in play in the setup, in your mindset, in your ability to visualize beforehand, in your ability to physically be prepared to be in a place to make a dig. All of this happens when you don't have the ball. So yeah, we may not be on the court right now, and we're all doing our best to stay engaged and we want to play, but there's a lot of things that we can do to improve our defense while we're not on the court. So mindset, okay? Offensive, defensive mindset. You're the first to really set things up for that person to hit at you. You want to make sure that you are in control. You're one with your team, and you are expecting to make the dig. I'm not just standing there hoping. I know that if that ball comes to me, it's going to be up because I'm taking control of my space. And that's confidence physically and mentally. We can all build that while we're off the court. So I would say that. Reed, how about you? Any touch-ups?
That's it. I honestly, Martin, once again, buddy, I appreciate doing this with you. I think it's coming together nicely. And hopefully you coaches, new athletes out here, take a few points away from here. We hit a lot of good topics that I think you could really utilize, whether that's visualization, mindset, the mobility, physicality standpoint. I think there's a lot of hidden gems here. Anyways, guys, I look forward to catching you guys next time.
Awesome. Thanks so much for watching. See you later.